Cannot lah. Singaporean very difficult to explain one.
You know,
No lah, where got musicality one? Walao eh. Singlish is
Singlish
is very very 准 one, very direct one. You say what or mean what.
Oh my goodness. Hi guys, welcome to the second episode of Words and Worlds, and this week I am joined by a friend of mine, Sez. And Sez is from Singapore and he's been living here for a little over 2 years. And he is the owner of a cafe here in Bali called Another Fucking Cafe. And let's just get to it. Sez, tell me. So why did you decide to first move to Bali, to Indonesia?
I was a digital nomad, and one of my good friends told me that Bali is the place to go for digital nomads. The infrastructure is set up for them, and there's very high accessibility. So I came here, and then the opportunity to purchase a cafe fell into my lap, I suppose. So I was like, I like coffee, and I need a place to work. So let me prepay like 5 years worth of coffee and working space. So that's how it came about.
Did it end up becoming a good decision to move to Indonesia, to Bali, and open up a cafe?
I mean, I don't know what the alternative would have been. I don't really like to live life that way and thinking about what else I could have done. But I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. I met a lot of friends through the cafe. Because of the cafe, I have wonderful staff. My reviews are decent. I think the coffee is pretty good. We worked quite hard on that. Shout out to my business partner Anga. So overall, I like the multi-diverse culture of Bali. I'm still a bit of a foreigner. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy, I would say.
But what is the biggest challenge, though? I can imagine, running a cafe itself is already a challenge, let alone running a cafe in a foreign country.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, I felt a little bit like a lamb being led to slaughter, in a sense where they would just lead me somewhere, ask me to sign this, pay that, and then I would just be like, okay, because I didn't know any better. So it was only later on that I learned to distinguish between friends and people pretending to be my friends so that they could take advantage of me. So doing business was a challenge. My first year of the cafe, we fired 7 staff.
Oh my God.
For multiple reasons, including theft, fighting, whatever you can imagine. So we tried to be good bosses. My business partner and I, we thought it was about money. We paid them well. We thought it was about community, or camaraderie. We took them out. We offered perks. We had a self-development fund for them. So I think it was like 500K a month per person, and they could spend it on like a gym membership, or we arranged English lessons for them, whatever they like to help them develop. But that wasn't what they wanted. So it was a bit of a struggle getting used to the working culture here. One thing that I always make fun of is that in Bali, if you ask when, it's always tomorrow. So things move at their own pace here, and this is something that I've had to adapt to, especially as a Singaporean, because in Singapore it's a completely different pace of life. It's a completely different mentality and values. So there were many challenges, but it were fun challenges that I grew from and I really liked. Yeah.
Pause. I don't know what happened here. Have you ever tried running a cafe in Singapore before, or this is just your very first experience running a cafe?
Yeah, it's my first experience running a cafe. I mean, the barriers to entry to run a business here are typically lower than a lot of places. They include startup costs, visas, allowances, that kind of thing. So it's you get a lot of very cool, very fresh ideas, and you also kind of see what, if you ride around, at least the Canggu area, and I imagine the Ubud area as well, or the Seminyak area, you'll see a lot of restaurants and bars coming up, and then a few months later you'll see a sign that says for lease or for rent. And so as much as there's a lot of new and fresh business ideas that are very cool that come up, the turnover rate is very high. So I mean, that's because of the barriers of entry. So to try something like that in Singapore or any other first world country is going to be a lot more, it's a lot riskier. And you can't just, this started as a side project, so like a passion project. It was never really my main thing, and still isn't. But over time, it's the main thing that binds me to Bali, right? But what I mean to say is that a lot of these are passion projects, side projects that you get that you would not have the opportunity to start in, I don't know, New York, London, or Singapore. Yeah, so that's how I feel about it.
Oh, wow. I actually wanted to get back to you about the different work culture, the different mentality between Singaporeans and Indonesians.
Yeah.
The most difficult thing that you learn about working with Indonesians in a cafe setting?
In a couple of maybe 9 months, 10 months ago, we did a renovation. So I hired a local contractor. They seem very on the ball. Actually, no, I'll go further back. The renovation was planned for January, and
Of
the
last
guy,
year, 24.
yeah, and the guy who agreed to do it was supposedly a friend of mine. He cancelled at the last minute. We planned everything around those dates. Right? He cancelled around it, and he said, I just can't do it. So it got pushed and pushed and pushed, and we kept trying to find contractors, and we want to do it over the March and April period, so that we're ready for the tourist season. And it got pushed all the way back to June, so that we only finished in July, and we only really reopened in August. So and you you look at any business, any villa building or like anything like that. This is a very, very common story.
Right.
So I would say in terms of a business, the market is very skewed in favor of the supply, in the sense where because there's so much demand for contractor work, construction and renovations and stuff like that, that the contractors are, they will drop you at a drop of a hat. So that's what I experienced with the first one. And then the second one, so the contractor that we finally settled on is now a good friend of mine. But at the time we didn't get along because we had several things listed out in our contract, in our chat that we constantly brought up. And it came to the day of it was almost done. We were like, hey, where's this item? And he's like, what item? We're like, we've been talking about this for 3 months. I can pull up 6 times we mentioned it in the chat.
Okay.
So it's little things like that. And I suppose, and this is where I'm a little bit torn because people want to say it's a clash of culture. Like if you come from somewhere that's extremely efficient, and I've lived in Berlin, I've lived in London and Singapore. If you live in places like these, or even somewhere like Japan, I suppose, where things are done in a certain way, and then you come to a place or a culture where people are just so much more relaxed, it's very easy to see that one is a positive and one is a negative.
Right.
But the thing is, if you extrapolate larger, the happiest places I've been to are also the slowest and most relaxed places. So it's not a coincidence, right? The Balinese are known for being very open, very happy, very relaxed. So it's a little bit ironic for me if I were to come in as a foreigner and say, I love this about the culture, but I don't like this part about the culture, because they're two different sides of the same coin. We can't say, I want the relaxed nature and the calm nature in Bali, but I also want, I don't know, fucking German efficiency. It doesn't make sense.
But I actually wanted to ask you again about because you told me the story that renovating your cafe was delayed by 6-7 months or something. Did you expect this at all? Because of course, if you have talked to other business owners in Bali, delays are very much expected as part of the process. Did you take that into account before?
I did. I expected delays, but I didn't expect the delays to be that bad.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. If it was a 1 month, 2 month delay, I would have been like, okay, this is just part of being in Bali. But 6 months was pretty bad, and one of them, was it was partly because a friend of mine had confirmed, and he having the fact that it was a friend who let me down was more, I guess.
Disappointing.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, so a work culture thing, and also with my business partner, when we were training the staff or putting like SOPs in place, the idea of an SOP alone to some Indonesian workers is already a little bit.
It's a foreign concept.
Yeah, exactly. But so we had to strike a balance of like allowing them to not feel like we're imposing foreign values on them, but at the same time getting the job done.
Right. Okay. And how did you manage to get a balance of that? Because we talked about this a couple of times, where you have quite some difficulties, and it had to go through a process of trial and error in trying to get your workers, your staff, to get the job done, but still be efficient.
Yeah. So I've had the fortune to have had some experience in management before this. So there's different philosophies or different principles that apply based on the size of the group that you're trying to manage.
Okay.
So the cafe has 4 staff. So you have a different approach versus managing a team of 6 to 10, and then that's a different approach from managing a team of 20 to 30 or like multiple teams.
Okay.
So what I realized is at the end of the day, like without a personal connection, it doesn't work.
Okay.
So I made an effort to connect with my staff on a more personal level. I mean, I already cared about them, but I was burnt before. We had this staff member who, after a while, he didn't get along with the other staff members. And then one day he was like, I really miss my family. I want to go back to Jakarta for a while. And then so we structured his leave for him. We made a lot of concessions so that he could go.
Okay.
And on top of that, we even put in 1 or 2 million of our own money to cover for his flight ticket.
Okay.
Wow. And he left, and he didn't come back.
Oh wow. Oh,
So
that's hard.
yeah, so he took our money, and also he owed me money for a bike that I sold to him secondhand at a very, very low price, and he hadn't finished paying off. And I did it because his bike broke. So I was like, okay, take mine, I'll get another one. I was going to sell it anyway, but I'll give it to you at a very, very cheap price. Yeah, so I think a part of it is like, despite all these betrayals and these violations of trust, you have to, you can't give up.
Right.
I see a lot of foreigners, a lot of business owners give up. They say some really terrible shit about locals and local workers and their work attitudes, and they just so we try to develop a personal relationship with them.
Okay.
We're very patient, and I think that was really the key, to keep trying, not be disheartened, and then eventually you meet the right staff who are worth the effort.
Okay. And do you think this experience that you have, let's say, with this one staff, or even your difficulties in managing Indonesian staff, is it's difficulty that is experienced by many foreigners, or do you think this is an experience that is experienced uniquely by you?
I've heard a lot of law about workers from different parts of Indonesia.
Okay.
Like
Different provinces.
yeah, like the Javanese will want to work a certain way. Jakartans expect a certain way. Balinese are a certain way. So I've heard very differing stories, but the more common ones are definitely with difficulty with getting staff, and a lot of it is a clash of getting good staff and keeping good staff, because the good ones always go for a better offer and everything. And it's just honestly is a clash of cultures, right? It's a lot of foreigners that come here, and the basic rate for a wait staff is something like 220 USD a month, something like that. So, so for example, when we were trying to hire, we put up a job ad. We had 70 resumes sent in. We texted maybe 50 of them. Maybe 10 replied, and 1 showed up for an interview.
Oh my goodness.
So that's like some dating app statistics, right?
Wow.
Because there's so many job offers floating around, and they're just waiting for some foreigner to go like, 220 is not a big deal. I'll pay double, I'll pay triple, whatever it is. Yeah, so it's a weird marketplace of foreign values when it comes to work, clashing with local, developing world wages,
Yeah.
and then the availability of work in certain the vast like there's so many jobs coming around because there's so many new places coming up like we talked about. Yeah, so the range of salaries is very wide. And the attitudes are very wide. There's Chinese owners, there's Singaporean owners, business owners, there's Jakartan business owners that also have their own.
Right.
Yeah. So one funny story. I have a current staff right now. His name is Kiki. When we first hired Kiki, the cafe was under renovation, and he saw me come in and basically get into arguments with the contractor, who's now my friend. And he told me later on, recently, that when that happened, he saw it, he was like, oh no, they call me Bule Garang or something. Like, he's like, oh, I have to work for a fierce boss again or something.
Oh, wow.
It's like, he thought that, so he had experience in the past working for a boss that was a bit on the ragey side.
Okay.
He thought I was one of those, and he was like, oh no, not again. But we're good friends now, we get along.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's what the locals go through, I guess, when they're looking for places.
And I have a question. What were some Singaporean values that you brought back from Singapore and then you try to impose it here, but it just failed? Like, oh, this only works in Singapore, it does not work here in Indonesia or in Bali when running a business.
I guess the idea of self-development, I think is
Interesting.
there's a very low. I don't mean this critically. I just mean this is what I observe. There's a very low drive towards self-improvement and self-development in locals.
Okay.
Like, for example, I brought up the fact that we put aside money for them, and we even encouraged them to, like, I had a chef, and he was quite a large man, and I was telling him, like, he was lonely. He always talked about he was a widower. So he talked about how he missed his wife and he wants to find a new partner and everything. And I was like, yeah, but if you have to take care of yourself first, right? So we encouraged him to go to the gym. We encouraged another one to take regular English lessons, and they just didn't want to. There was so much resistance, and and if the thing is, if this were in Singapore and like a young 21-year-old worker was like, my boss is investing in me, they would be expected to take advantage of the situation, right? And be like, he's paying for this. Is a good skill that will, learning English and everything will open the doors to. And I was very open with them. I was like, I know you're not going to stay at the cafe forever. The turnover rate for staff is like 1 year, 2 years. You'll work here for the experience, and you go on to a better job at a better pay. And I get that. I'll hire somebody who is less experienced to replace you. And this is part of the marketplace.
Okay.
And I understand that because I worked in a cafe and a restaurant in Singapore as well. So I get that, right? Like, this is not going to be your life. I understand. But, in the meantime, learn some skills that you can take for life. And I'm very happy for you to... Yeah, but it didn't click. They didn't want to. Yeah, so that's something that I tried, that was very Singaporean. Singapore is all about improving yourself, and all that very corporate, a lot of corporate jargon, a lot of corporate attitudes.
Okay.
But, I mean, this is what made... I don't hate on it. I don't like or dislike it. I just see it for what it is.
Okay.
Same way as I'm trying to see Balinese attitudes or Indonesian attitudes. Yeah.
So, if let's say they are not motivated by the drive for self-development, what do you think is the one thing that drives them to actually get things done?
That's the thing. I think. See, that's what I tried to nail. I tried to figure out. I thought it was money. We paid them well. Some liked it, some left. There was this young kid. I think he was 18 or 19, and we were giving him the market rate and slightly above, and then service charge on top of that, and everything. So he was making about twice as much somebody his age would have made in another cafe. They would have taken advantage of him, put him on an hourly wage instead, so that they can justify the lower wage. And he was like, he was fighting with another staff member, and he was like, oh, he's here, I'm not gonna be here, that kind of thing. so in my head, like again, maybe this is a continuation of Singaporean values. It's like you're gonna find somebody that you don't like at your next place. You know, this is work. This is not. We're not asking you to be friends, right? And we were accommodating. We were like, let's stagger the schedule so that you don't have to see him. You know, and like we thought problem solved. But he ended up quitting, and in my head I was thinking like, he's young, he's stupid. He'll figure out that he had a good thing going and he killed the golden goose. And then we thought, no, it's not money. Maybe it's like camaraderie. We would take them out for dinners. It wasn't that. So I realized like, so when we did the renovation and before that, I sat each one of my staff down and I asked them. This is when the personal touch comes in, and I was asking them like, what do you want from working here? Right? Is it more money? Is it like a flexible work schedule? What is it that you personally want? And we would try to accommodate that for each of the staff. So my manager right now, Dimas, he told me that he wants to run his own cafe one day. So he wants to learn everything. So we put him on a manager track, and we started to pass him more responsibilities. So we started to show him how we did things, how to use Excel sheets to calculate cost, how to work out schedules, how to do all of that, and like work out checklists for inventory, and all that. And it's a small cafe, but like these are principles that will carry on no matter how big you are, as long as you're in F&B. Yeah, so that was what he wanted, and there was one of my newer staff is like, he came in and said, I want to be a better barista. Okay. So we were like, if you look at our reviews, we consistently have very good reviews about the coffee. So this is a place where you can learn to do that. And I was like, yeah, we will make sure that we train you on site instead of off site, because sometimes we outsource the training to a company. We send them for like a 3-day course. But for him, we did it in store because he wanted to learn on a more like cafe setting. So my manager and the other Kiki are the main ones training him. So after like a month or so, I would go back and quality control, quality taste his coffee, and the quality has gone up a lot. He's learning very fast. Wow. So there's no one size fit all. Yeah. So again, like the size of the team matters. If you're dealing with a smaller number, the personal touch and getting to know each other and what connects with them matters. If it's a medium size, if we're running a larger place with like 6 to 10 staff, then that's different because you'll be too exhausted if you try to have a personal relationship with them. So that's more, it's more important to identify a few key players and have them as your pillars and your communication channels, so to speak. And basically try and copy and paste yourself onto those two and train 2 or 3 good ones to, cover the rest. But yeah, that was the philosophy. That was the lessons, that I took from dealing with my staffing issues.
Right. So you definitely incorporate a little bit of personal, not a little, but maybe a lot of personal touches and like really understand what motivates per person.
Yeah, I personally touch them a lot.
What is an Indonesian rule that you had to learn the hard way? Either it's in a professional setting, or you running a cafe, or even in a more social setting.
I don't think it was in a hard way, but so one thing that fascinates me is the driving, the scooters, the way that people drive here. Okay. And it's very apparent the attitudes. So I look like a local, and I've always been treated like a local before they know. So people will see me, they'll start talking to me in Bahasa, and I'll just either play along or be like, I'm sorry, I don't actually speak. And they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I thought you were from Jakarta or something. So it's funny to see because on the road there's no time or space for people to realize that I'm actually a bule, a foreigner. They treat me like a local, so they drive around me and they expect me to ride like a local. So when I do certain things, they're like, it makes me look a bit weird.
How do locals drive, actually?
So it's like playing a video game. It's like playing Frogger. you know, when you're crossing the road and you're like avoiding things. So it's a little bit like a game. You find little gaps and everything. As long as there's solid ground beneath you, nothing is out of bounds. They'll go on the roofs if it's possible. Which, yeah. So the first time I got here, I sat on a Gojek, and he was on the pavement and everything, like, which is very normal. But I was like shitting my pants. I was grabbing the back of the bike and being like, "Oh my god, it's such a close call." He would go in between cars. He would cut onto the opposing lane and do like the craziest maneuvers. And then like within 3 to 4 months, I remember like I was headphones in, like helmet on, of course. But I was doing the same things, and I was finding little gaps in between the cars. I was seeing that the car was slowing down for me to enter the gap, and I would do that, you know. Yeah. And the thing is, I take tremendous pride. At the time of this recording, I still have my perfect record of not having been in any accident, and well, driving a car in Singapore and riding a bike here, actually anywhere. So, you know, a lot of wood to touch, but and I guess I'm a safe driver, I would like to think, but I'm also very conscious of the way that they drive, and it's very fascinating to me because there's all these little like small understandings that are shared, and like if you see a guy slow down, he's like, yeah, you can go, and you can see sometimes the bullets struggle with that, and I struggled there at the beginning as well. But I think it's a little bit like being thrown into the deep end of the pool, because they look at me and they're like, "You're local. You should drive like a local," and they drive around me like a local, and then I'm like, I'm forced to adapt. But now I'm good.
I think one thing that I notice about driving here is that people don't really give you the right of way. You know, sometimes like if let's say you're in an intersection, you just have to push yourself through to pass through. Otherwise, they're not gonna give it to you.
Yeah.
Whereas I would say when I was living in the U.S. and in the Netherlands, I mean, I didn't really drive. I mean, I rode the bike, but people are very generous in giving you like, go on.
Yeah.
You know? But here you have to fight for it. Otherwise, no one's gonna give you the way.
Yeah. In Singapore as well, I mean, they don't drive dangerously per se unless they're drinking, but pedestrians don't really get the right of way. If you try and cross a road, I mean, technically it's illegal. It's called jaywalking in Singapore because we're a bit rule crazy. If you're crossing the road, an open road, and a car is coming, the car will honk at you and be like, basically, what the hell are you doing? You do that in Germany, especially the small, any kind of road that isn't a main road, they'll slow down and and the first time that happened to me, because I lived in Berlin a couple of months, like in and out. The first time that happened to me, I was so shocked. I was like, oh, okay, okay, thank you. And then, and London as well, that doesn't happen. London drivers are, in my experience, very, very angry and extremely road ragey. Same as Singaporeans.
I'm actually quite curious to hear from an Italian perspective how driving is, the difference between driving in Rome and Bali or Jakarta. People don't say it's very different, you know. But
really?
Yeah, okay. That's what I heard. But I haven't gotten an Italian person on the show yet. But
you can find one. It's Bali.
A lot of Italians here.
Half of Italy is here.
What about like in terms of communication style amongst Indonesians? Because like I'm referring to what we call the high context culture and the low context culture, where low context culture is usually quite direct. It's like what you say is what you get, whereas high context, it's like a lot of beating around the bush, let's say. Do you have any experience with that?
Not really, but I will say that in terms of the language, I really like Indonesian or Bahasa in a sense of how direct it is.
How so?
So I tried to learn German. I think A1 or A2, if you know, it's very rusty. But the number of grammatical rules that they are, as compared to English, as compared to Bahasa, it's just levels and levels apart. And being from Singapore, I picked up a little bit of Malay as I was growing up, and Malay and Indonesian are very close.
Right.
And it's just very direct. And if you translate it to English, it just goes like, I go play, or like, I play now, or I play later. You know, it's very like.
You don't change the. Verb.
You don't conjugate. Yeah. You know, you don't. There's no is, was, what's that, infinitive, and I'm trying to remember all my English teacher shit. But yeah, it's just very, very, as a language, it's very direct,
Simple, yeah.
right? I wouldn't say, yeah, I suppose simple, but for me, it's just direct. And it's, I think it's a bit of it's a bit of a contrast because going back to the driving, one of my more memorable experiences that I see every once in a while is when two Indonesians almost collide on bikes. And if it's two foreigners, or as long as if a foreigner is involved, they're more likely to be angry or be like,
At the foreigner?
doesn't matter. It's like if the foreigner is involved, they're like, oh my god, like how could you have driven that way? That was so dangerous, and all. They have this like outrage about them. It's like, you know, but when two, and sometimes it's like an ibu, right? Like it's just some like with groceries on a thing, like no helmet, and she's like almost clashing with a guy, and they just go like, ho ho ha ha ha, and like, oh my god, almost died there. See you later, you know, that kind of vibe. So it's like, and you never see that with like. With a foreigner, if a foreigner is involved, and even if it's a foreigner and a local, even if the local feels that way, he or she wouldn't feel like he feels that way. So they'll be like, "Oh, okay, apologies," because you know they think that they assume that the bule is going to be angry or outraged or have a different reaction.
Right.
But if it's two locals, it's usually like, you know.
They're a lot more tolerant to mistakes.
Yeah, and it's just it's more also like. I was behind this guy once, and this other guy came in, and it was a very dangerous maneuver. And the guy in front of me just went whoop, and it was this crazy maneuver, and he was just carried on like. And I was looking at his face; he had no like expression of shock or anything. Wow. It was just like, oh yeah, I know he's gonna almost kill me, and this is how I adapt.
Wow.
So it just becomes very normalized. And now I've caught myself doing things like that as well. I'll see a car that reverses out that that doesn't even check. Right? And I just do this crazy last minute maneuver and I'm alive. And there's no shock, there's no like spike in heart rate. It's just like, yep.
Just another day.
Yeah, I saw that coming because, you know, and I just adjusted accordingly. To the point where like it's literally split hair distances between the car and my windscreen or mirror or something.
So you would say like your experience driving here, you get a lot of near-death experiences that you don't even see as near-death because it's just another.
It's just so normalized. But going back to the language, so that interaction, right, is so. I think in a nutshell, certain exchanges or communications can afford to be very direct because there's very little negativity around it. So it's that almost clash, right? The two locals that almost clash. It's just like, oops, yep, bye-bye. So I think because the culture of Indonesians, I mean, it's a huge country. There's a lot of different cultures. I get that, but I don't know if in Singapore we call it the kampong. So it's like the village kind of mentality is very open, very relaxed, and you know, everybody is like, you know. So in this kind of open and giving community culture, you can afford to be direct. It's okay. You just say what you like, and people like either they're on board or they're not. But when society evolves more, maybe we need higher, more convoluted and complicated ways of communicating, often via language, because there's more walls put up. Okay. That's why you can't be as direct. If you think about
walls, as in personal walls, or
societal walls of like, if you think about like, there's all these like, if you see any of those reels about the English people in England, in the UK, and like what they say versus what they mean, right? And how there's this constant thing of like they're extremely polite,
right?
And it's like, oh, so sorry, didn't see you there, and what they really mean is like, you muppet, you should watch where you're going.
Right.
And it's just, and you think about like corporate email culture. It's like, oh, circling back to, or like just pointing out, you know, it's like little like polite, but you read all this like passive aggressiveness into it. Why can't we be direct? And the reason why we can't be direct is because people get butthurt if you're too direct, right? And there's too much emotion and ego. There's a little bit more fragile to protect. But
like people are more thin-skinned, let's say.
Yeah. But in a kampong mentality or style or culture, whatever you want to call it, is fine. Nobody gets offended if you're direct. So I think that's why the language doesn't have to evolve to keep up with the societal constructs, I suppose, of communication. Yeah, so I don't know. This is just something interesting that I think about sometimes.
Okay, that's cool. Well, it's good that you have a platform to talk about it, to
Yeah,
think about loud.
yeah. I mean, if anywhere to talk about languages.
Right,
it's here,
right.
Yeah.
Have you actually tried learning Bahasa before? I mean, you did say you did
Yeah.
mention that you learned Malay, but Bahasa
I
Indonesia.
picked up a little bit of Malay. Yeah, I mean, a little bit here and there. And of course, when when you start learning any language, you start with the bad words.
Right, of course.
So my staff taught me all the worst things to say, and my friends as well. And I asked for it. Like Nyla as well probably contributed a little bit here and there. Yeah. So and the thing is, so the swear words in Malay don't translate into the swear words in Indonesian.
Okay.
Because that's the first thing I tried to learn, right? So obviously that's the first thing I discovered. For example, in Malay, you call them bodoh or kayu, which is like a block of wood. You're calling somebody a block of wood. But you wouldn't say that in that context. Here's goblok, right? Which means like silly or idiot or whatever. And you can use it in an endearing sense as well, like a friend is like.
Right.
But in Malay, bodoh means stupid, like literally like you shit for brains.
Right,
You're not very
right.
smart. And there's a bunch of other stuff that I probably shouldn't say. But yeah, that was funny. And then I always get a kick out of if I say something that's really local, in terms of a swear word. My staff, they enjoy it very much. Yeah,
Wow, of course.
They're like,
But I think it's always
Funny.
a special experience when you hear, like, let's say, if you have a foreign boss and they say bad words that you're actually not supposed to ever say it in a more
Yeah.
professional setting. I think that's always going to be very fun.
yeah. And I don't hold back. Right? I say the worst things, and then some of them like their jaws drop, which is quite funny.
I'm actually trying to remember the bad words that I taught you. If I even
You-
taught you one.
Because you're so wholesome, I don't think you taught me the very bad ones. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think the first time that Sez and I met, you have already known all of the bad words that there is to learn in Bahasa, especially because you're friends with Angga. Angga is his
Yeah.
business partner. You've probably learned much more words.
When I first met Nyla, she summoned like all the bad words from me. That's why.
Wow.
Yeah, it triggered all the
If
all the
only
swears.
they could see the lies through the screen.
Hey, I'm sure the audience members are smart. They can read into what's true and what's not.
Okay, let's test your bahasa a little bit.
Oh God.
Okay. Kopi kamu enak nggak di cafe?
Yeah. Shit. Inak bang banyak? No.
Banget.
Banget.
Enak banget.
Yeah. My coffee is very delicious. How do you say my?
Kopi saya or kopiku.
Kopi saya.
It's just the same word for I, right?
Kopi saya di cafe. Inak banyak.
Enak banget.
Banget.
Banyak means like a lot,
Inak banyak. Bagus, baik.
But to be fair though, like the coffee in his cafe is actually really good. I would actually normally go there for the coffee, and I'm not saying this just because he's my friend. It's actually really good.
She's saying because she's my friend. I paid her. It's a paid promotion by my cafe.
Oh yeah,
Plot
I
twist.
got free lunch. He brought me free lunch before this, so yes, I kind of have to promote.
I haven't charged you yet.
Oh shit.
I put it on your tab. I'm kidding.
Whoopsie. Have you ever accidentally said something embarrassing in Bahasa that got you in a in a fail moment?
Yes, but it's very graphic. I can't
Okay.
I can't repeat it here.
You can share. Okay, got it.
Okay, wait. No, I can do a safe for work version. So if you have to do your own research. So the platform is not going to be liable. The word main is play, right?
Main. Yeah.
Main, yeah. So that has it's used in a different context in Malay. So you can look that up.
Main. Okay.
Yeah, and also masuk, which is to enter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those two words are used in a very different context in
Malay and-
Malay, as in
Wow.
Singapore. Yeah, so I'll just leave it at that. You guys do your own research.
Okay.
You'll figure it out.
So now that we are on the topic of Malay language or even the language that you speak in Singapore, can you maybe teach me how to speak like a Singaporean? Teach me Singaporean accent.
Cannot lah. Singaporean very difficult to explain one.
Cannot lah.
Okay.
Singapore, just like a typical Singlish accent. I want to learn it.
So I do this sometimes with friends. There's 5 levels of Singlish, and I'm gonna go through them very quickly. So the first level of Singlish is when Singaporeans actually speak very good English, but you can hear that there is a bit of an accent behind. However, this is very understandable to anybody who speaks English, and the grammar is more or less flawless. But then if you go to the level 2 of Singlish, right, then you will have more of the very famous like la, lo, le, you know, and especially the la, because people always say, wow, Singaporean la.
Yeah,
all that, right?
Singaporean lah.
Yeah, so that's when all these small things start to come in, and then you still understand the English, you still know that it's Singaporean, and you can hear lah. But the very cool thing about Singlish is that because we learn English, but we also have, now I'm at the level, now I talk level 3, right? This is how I talk to my friend in Singapore.
This is how you talk to your friends?
If I talk to my very local, like not even very local, my normal friend in Singapore, right? This is how I talk.
This is how I
Then we were throwing a lot, then you will kena a lot of things because we're talking English, but then we have a lot of, we throw Malay word inside, we throw Chinese word inside, and we throw sometimes Tamil word also inside.
Wow.
And Hokkien word. Because Hokkien is the dialect of the Taiwanese people. So the Taiwanese people come from this place in China called Fujian, or Fuzhou, one of those. Then all the migrants from Singapore, right, are actually from that same area one. So they all talk Hokkien. So y'all will hear a lot of this like Hokkien word throw inside the Singlish. But like, if I go out and with my friend, this is how I talk.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I have to see you in Singapore to see this. Oh my goodness. I love how like every level that you describe, your accent just changes with it.
Yeah. Then you go to level 4, right? Fuck yeah. Level 4 is if you is for people in the army normally talk on. So every Singaporean, right, need to go army 2 years. When you're in the army, you talk like this one to your people. So it's very a lot of the sound one. So it don't even sound like, sometimes if you never hear properly, right, you also cannot understand what I say one. You need to catch all the word, then slowly like, oh, this one English, this one not English. Then slowly then you can like kind of understand you know.
Oh my God, I'm gonna have a hard time subtitling.
Jibai is very very tough. Then yeah, you cannot understand because the accent very strong, and then the word also Singapore very famous for we never pronounce the word properly one. Like instead of very, I say ver. Instead of government, I say government.
Government.
Wow, the government them jialat, man. See, jialat is not an English word. Jialat is, I don't even know whether it's
jialat?
I think it's Hokkien. I'm not sure. It means in a very bad place.
In a very bad place.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll say, wow, the government very jialat one. Every year the tax go up. Wow, lan. So I hold back a lot of swear word because in case we have Singaporean audience. But our swear word is a very colourful one.
Oh my God.
Because Chinese proverb is based on 4 characters. For example, we say, 人山人海. It means human mountain, human sea. But it's poetic to say a lot of people. So it's so many people that look like mountain, look like sea. So even our swear word also go by the 4 like this one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for example, we say, 靠北靠bu. This one is not so bad. It means cry mother, cry father. It means you make too much noise. Yeah, don't 靠北靠bu. Don't make so much noise.
Wow. And what about the musicality of it? Like the, you know.
No lah, where got musicality one? Walao eh. Singlish is very very 准 one, very direct one. You say what or mean what.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, there it is. I think I'm glad that I have this recorded, and if I do want to learn how to speak with a Singaporean accent, I can always rewind to this part. So,
Okay,
yeah.
but for today I'll teach 2 very simple Singlish. If you ever go to Singapore, you ever talk to any Singaporeans, you've used these 2, they'll be very impressed. First one is ayo.
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 It means like, oh my, just, you know. So if you see something like ayo, So
Okay.
yeah, it can be a negative or it can be not positive, or surprise. It can be surprise or a not so nice surprise.
Okay.
Yeah. One of my mom's favorite words. And if you add it with a head shake, it's very, it's like putting it down. You know, it's
Okay.
like, for example, if I see you with your, I don't know, your hair all over the place, I'd be like, ayo, so untidy. Yeah,
So untidy
that's
lah.
the first one. No, you cannot. See, this is what people always think that just add the la, it becomes English. You need to be subtle with your la's. I'm not going to teach you the la today because everybody misuses it. I'm going to teach you another one. It's called wah.
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 It just means wow.
Okay. That's quite straightforward.
So if you like do your hand nicely, I'll be like wah. Yeah, it's like surprise.
That's it. Nothing else.
So
just wah.
ayo and wah. Your Singaporean friends will be impressed.
Gotcha. Well, I think I'm going to wrap up because it's been almost 50 minutes. So yeah, thank you so much, by the way, for coming into the show. Do you have any
problem.
last words before we turn it off?
Oh man, how are there any restrictions? They are, right, probably. No, okay, I'll say who are you, like they come to you to learn English?
These are mostly Indonesians who are usually at the intermediate level, upper beginner, lower intermediate levels.
Okay. Okay. Terima kasih. Do you use aku or saya? Aku is informal, right? And
I
saya
usually use aku, but in Bahasa, but I do use English mostly. So
Okay.
But if I have to choose one, I use aku usually.
Okay. Aku tidak. No, aku tak tahu bahasa, is that correct? Tapi aku suka Bali. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm holding back all my root stuff.
But that's a good closing to end the show, actually, to end the series.
Yeah.
So okay, thank you so much, Ses, for your time and for your presence here and for the free scrambled tofu. And if you guys like the video, make sure to give it a like for the algorithm. And thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll see you next time on another video. Until then, take care and bye-bye.
Bye bye. How do you say bye bye in Indonesian?
Dadah.
Dadah.